Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Disco Kit. This is for your November release. This month's feature, we are doing harvest wines. So wines that go fresh with the harvest table. Everywhere in the Northern Hemisphere is celebrating harvest right now. And lots of festivities, including ours, that involve a lot of food. So we're pairing food wines together. One of the wines that is featured in your Disco Kit is the new Avalon Cider. I don't know if that will focus, kind of. But this is what the bottle looks like. You can see the juice looks fantastic. And I am very fortunate to have with me Lance Hanson from Jack Rabbit Hill Farm. He is here to answer a few of our questions, to talk about the wonderful wine that and cider that he's making in Palisade, Colorado. So without further ado, Lance, let me allow you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background with wine, and we'll go from there.
Well, thanks so much, Mick, for having me. And yes, again, my name is Lance Hanson. I own and operate Jack Rabbit Hill Farm. We're actually outside of Hotchkiss, not Palisade. So we're in an area known as the North Fork Valley. It's about an hour and 15 minutes south of Grand Junction. But like Palisade, it's a fruit-friendly climate. We have, sort of a small community of commercial orchards and vineyards where we are. And we founded Jack Rabbit Hill Farm in 2001, originally as an estate winery. And then we started distilling. We also make Caprock, gin, vodka, and brandies on the farm, and got into making cider, about probably 7-8 years ago. And it was sort of wasn't intentional. That sounds kind of funny, but we actually had been working with apple because we use apple as the base spirit in Caprock gin. So we started making Caprock gin in 2008. I think, and we were bringing in tons and tons of apples and fermenting and distilling the apples, and then we saw kind of the market for cider come into the United States, and decided that what we could contribute was more of an old world style cider, and so that's why we got into it. It was a natural next step because we've been fermenting so many apples for the Caprock program. And so that was the genesis of the cider program. And because of our wine background, we always wanted to make ciders that I guess you would characterize, at least in this country, as wine-like ciders. And so it's a small program for us. We don't do a lot of it, but we do, every year we try to mix it up and do something a little bit different and a little experimental. And we call it New Avalon. That's kind of like the sub name of our cider program.
Great, that sounds exciting. So you came actually, your first product, which a lot of our folks may have seen on the shelf. We carry it at Joy, and they may have seen it around Denver in particular. Is the Caprock gin?
Yes.
And yeah, and you also do a couple of other products as well too. And is it Mel or M? I don't know how to pronounce it. I've seen it, the MEII.
Yeah. Some people call it me too, right? ME, right? Me, and then Roman numeral 2. But it's Mel. It's MELL. And the reason why it's uppercase M, uppercase E, and then lowercase l, lowercase l, which looks like a Roman numeral 2, is that if you turn the bottle upside down and look at it through the back, it spells well.
Oh, okay. I've never done that.
And there's a little message too that you can read from the back as well. So we tried to have some fun with it. So it's a well vodka. We originally developed it in collaboration with a restaurant entrepreneur in our area as a vodka that would be attractive for restaurants and bars, as they're sort of, as a craft well spirit coming down on the price, but offering pretty good quality. And so it's, yeah, it really, it's well upside down.
That makes absolute sense now. So it sounds like you've been using apples as the basis for a lot of your products. So the
Yes.
And you at some point moved into winemaking and started growing grapes as well.
Yeah.
How have you been doing that?
So that's how we started, Mick. Okay. We actually, the original plan with Jackrabbit Hill Farm was to be an estate winery, right? And so one of the very first, projects was to start planting vineyards. And so we started that in 2001. And, we have about 15 acres in the ground now. And so that was our very first program. And then we got into distilling in 2005, which that was our second program. And the idea behind distilling was really simply to, mitigate the risk of growing grapes here in Colorado. And, we didn't think that it would be, we always thought of it as supplementing the business. But in fact, what happened was it grew, it kind of overtook the wine business. And so the wine business is not our chief revenue contributor. However, our wines are grown on the farm. We're wine growers. We're not just winemakers, and growing practices. And in our case, that means biodynamic farming. That has always been a key feature of our identity.
Right. And that's one of the things, I'll bring up the New York Times article we talked about. I think it's titled "If Wine and Cider Had a Baby."
Right.
Talk about a lot of producers, particularly domestic, but it's happening around the world, who are starting to experiment with this practice of fermenting grapes and apples together, or using a winemaking style to kind of make just like a delicious product that may be a little bit not so traditional when you think about it, but is really rooted in kind of like very agricultural production. So how much of a factor, you kind of mentioned it already, that the production of the distillates is there to sort of hedge any of the risk that comes about from being a wine producer, from being a wine grower? And what do you think some of the risks are, particularly now with regarding to climate change and everything else going on?
Yeah, well, climate change is an interesting, factor for us. It really, I don't really see, I don't see our climate changing in the sense of, the weather here getting gradually warmer. Okay. I mean, it's, maybe if you look at the averages, yes, maybe our average is going up, but the problem that we have is that, we can still get these, what I call deep dive, cold events. So even if our climate is gradually, temps are increasing very gradually weather-wise, the risk continues to be the same risk that we've always had are cold events. And and that's a huge consideration for growing wine grapes in our area. Not so much for apples. Apples are much hardier in our climate than apples, in the sense that the winter freezes, the deep freezes, where we're talking about going, 5 below, 10 below, in some cases, that won't harm, most tree variety buds. It won't kill the buds, and the buds are where the fruit comes from. So if you have an event like that, in the winter, it may not kill the tree, but it might kill the bud, and then the tree will leaf out in the spring, but it won't have any fruit, won't be carrying any fruit. That kind of a cold event is unlikely in Colorado to affect tree fruit, right? But it will affect wine grape fruit, right? And so, but that we've always had that risk, I think, here, regardless of sort of the climate change considerations. So for us, really our main driver was just seeing, again, because of the experience that we already had with working with apples for Caprock Gin and the vodka programs, we were seeing very interesting characteristics, very interesting qualities coming out of our apple fermentations. And so our idea was to look at how a blend of apple and grape ferments could produce cider that had maybe the mouthfeel characteristics and the finish characteristics, the layering, the complexity that you have mid palate and on the finish of good wines. See if we could carry that over into our cider. And so that was really the sort of the motivating factor for the new Avalon Orchard cider, which is the one that you have, which is a blend of grape and apple. And the way that we do it, when I say that, we're really influenced by winemaking, we're trying to do wine-like ciders. What we do, we actually make the cider, we ferment the cider the way you would ferment a red wine. So we take the whole apple, okay, the whole crushed apple, meaning the juice, the pulp, skin, seeds, and that's fermented just like you would ferment a whole red grape. And so you're not only getting a color in the case of a red wine from the skin because you're fermenting the skin with the juice, but you're also getting texture, right, in the mouthfeel from the tannins. And so we do that with our apples. So typically, when you make an apple cider, what you do is you crush the apple, you ferment the apple immediately, and then you take the juice and just the juice and you ferment it. Right. Well, we're taking not only the juice, but the solids, fermenting those together. So we're going to get those interesting compounds, those flavor and mouthfeel compounds that are coming out of the skins and seeds. We can bring those into the cider because of this sort of red wine-like approach that we take. And then on the wine side, we're doing the same thing. We're actually taking that cider, and then we're working with not only red wine but also the red pomace, right? What we call the press cake, so that we're bringing even more of those qualities in from the red grape skins and the red seed. And so you're going to get a cider that, even though it's 6-7% alcohol, it's sturdy. It's got a nice, sturdy, textured finish. It's layered. It's got some interesting complexity, and of course, it's totally bone dry, like all of our stuff, our wines, all of our ciders are bone dry, and so I think it's a nice pairing cider, for fish, white meats, lamb, nice salads, you name it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a glass here, and while you were talking, I was like, that is exactly what you're describing, my experience with tasting it. And so for our Disco Kit members there, when you smell this, I actually kind of like blinded it on my partner, who had no clue that it was a cider, and he was picking out all these like wine flavors to it. And so you do get a lot of that bold red fruit, a lot of kind of that cherry, and what you talked about, the whole fruit fermentation. And like, can you explain a little bit what a press cake is really quick for our viewers?
Yeah. So when you make wine, first thing you do after harvest is you take the fruit, right, the clusters of grapes, and you put them in what we call a crusher destemmer. It's basically a machine that will separate the berries, from the stems. And so that's called a destemmer, or the destemmer part of this machine. And then those berries are conveyed into a pair of hammer mills. They're like, I won't say they're grinders, but they basically will crush the grape. They'll break the skin of the grape. Okay. And then, so now the grape is broken and it's dropped into a big vat, a big container. So you've got this grape material that's basically crushed grapes. It looks kind of like a stew, right? And so that then the next step is either to ferment that and press it, or to press it and ferment it. Okay. So when you're typically when you're doing a white wine, what you do is you crush it and then you press it. And what you're doing when you're pressing that white wine is you're separating the liquid. And remember now, it's still juice in the case of a white wine, right? It hasn't fermented into wine yet. It's grape juice. And so what you're doing is you're simply separating the grape juice from the solids, right? By pressing them in a closed container that has kind of a filter screen around it that lets the juice escape, but it retains the solids, the skins and seeds. And the end result is that it looks, when you're done with the process and you take apart the machine, what you have inside the basket that pressed the fruit is what we call the press cake. And so it looks like a cake. It doesn't have a lot of juice in it, so it's moist, but it's dry. And it's just all of it's condensed, skins and seeds. Okay.
It's beautiful.
And so that's a white wine. The red wine process is reversed. What you do with the red wine is you crush the red grape, but then you let the red grape, the whole grape, the skin, seed, juice, pulp, everything, you let it ferment. And then you press after fermentation. Okay, but either way, whether you're making red or white, you usually press. Okay, and so that press cake that we use in the New Avalon Orchard cider is from a red grape. It's actually a field blend of red grapes. And so it's got, because it's the solids, again, it's going to have a lot of those compounds, right, that are the tannins in a wine. So it's a good source of grape tannin, grape skin tannin, right? There are different types of tannins. And in this case, kind of what we're looking for are the grape skin tannins and the grape seed tannins. And I think what's interesting about New Avalon cider is you can actually, I think you could pick up, there's a grape seed note in the aroma and an apple seed note as well, because remember, we're doing the same thing with the apples. We're not just fermenting the juice, right? We're fermenting the juice along with the skins and seeds.
Right. Yeah. And so you're taking those components, they contribute like a little bit of an earthiness, and it's kind of a pleasant bitterness that sort of rounds out and brings an anchor to all of the fruit flavors that are there. And you're absolutely right. Some of those tannins are very fine and they show through on the finish, in addition to the lovely bubbles here given
yes. Nice.
Which, like you said, are great for food, right? You have this wonderful juice that's representative of a lot of the agricultural product, particularly your region of Colorado.
Yes.
As well, grapes. What are some, you said it was a field blend. What are some of the grapes that you have planted?
Oh, so this came from, we have 3 different blocks on the property. So three different sort of discrete fields of vineyard. And so this block is called the Upper West Side. And it's a blend, it's a field blend of, I think we've got everything in there. It's got Malbec. It's got something called New York 70, which is a hybrid out of New York. We have, we might have some Riesling in there, some Meunier, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay. I mentioned Meunier. What else? Bianca, maybe in there. Bianca's another. Bianca is actually a hybrid from. It's a cross that was developed in Hungary.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It makes a lovely white wine, and so it's it's kind of a combination of sort of these crosses, intentional crosses, from Europe, one from New York, from Cornell, and then the traditional varieties, traditional wine varieties like Pinot Noir, Meunier, Chardonnay, Malbec, Petit Verdot, and Merlot.
Wow, that's a big cross.
Yeah, we threw everything in on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like it tastes beautiful. All of the aromas are going to match a lot of the aromas on the table. We talked about this being a very food-friendly wine. I think on your label, it's clocking in at
it's
6.5 or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right. Upper high sixes.
Oh, yeah, 6.9%.
Okay.
Which just makes it like really easy to consume, and you don't maybe have to feel so bad about things later on.
Yeah, exactly.
And then real quick too, I just wanted to kick a promotional mention for you. You're doing an event with the Hotel Jerome that's featuring some Colorado producers, including the cider.
Yes.
As well as your Meunier Pinot Noir blend.
Yes.
Which I know we also carry at Joy.
Yes. Yeah, we're excited about that. It's a program that they're going to be running all season at the Hotel Jerome. So what they're doing is they're putting together kind of a special menu that's showcasing what they think is really the best of Colorado in food and beverage. And so we're honored to be part of that. We've been working with them for years, and they, it's not always that, some of these bigger companies, and they're a big company, they're part of the Auberge Resort group, and they've always sort of gone out of their way to support, sort of the local and the craft producers. And it's again, without customers like Joy and the Jerome and our other customers, it'd be very, very hard for us to stay in business. So we appreciate it.
Well, we certainly appreciate you taking the time with us. You've made a beautiful product. I've had
Thank you.
Wonderful as well. And I'm excited to see what kind of feedback we're going to get from our members. I was going to say our users, but they're more than using the wine. Hopefully they're enjoying it tremendously. So thanks so much. And we'll chat soon.
Great. Thanks so much, Mick.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.